that has killed thousands since December and left nearly 1 million displaced and at risk of starvation. When will the people of South Sudan enjoy peace and freedom at last? And is Emmanuel Jal himself free from the traumas of being a child soldier? Audience, please welcome Emmanuel Jal to Hard Talk. Emmanuel Jal, Sudan as it was then, at civil war for 5 decades. Nearly 2 million people died from starvation, war, disease, and you yourself, in your young life, really only knew conflict.
I was born in violence, so peace was robbed from my childhood in the beginning.
You were not only robbed from peace, you were also robbed of your mother, who died in the conflict.
Yeah, all my aunties died during the war, my mom too, and also all my uncles as well, except two. And that's what I saw what war did. It robs people's souls.
You're interesting because your father is from the Nuer tribe and your mother was a Dinka. Just tell us the circumstances about the death of your mother. I know it was a very sad occasion. You were about 6 or 7 at the time.
Yeah, what actually happened is there was several village raids, so we kept running from one place to another. And so all along, because my mother was pregnant then, so I thought maybe she got shot. But recently my grandmother told me she actually died of exhaustion, giving birth on her arm because she ran, and that's how she died.
Mm. And your father joined what was then the Sudan People's Liberation Army, fighting for independence from Sudan, and you really didn't see him because he was just off fighting the whole time.
He was off fighting, and also he was in charge of the whole area at that time when we left the town. But he's the one who actually collected hundreds of kids that were sent to Ethiopia that were going to go to school, and he actually gave me out because the villages were going to go on riot. And so that's how I was taken to Ethiopia and later became a child soldier.
So your own father basically allowed you to be recruited as a child soldier when you were only about 7 or 8.
Yeah, so I don't know if he knew that we're going to be soldiers because it was made attractive that we're going to go to school, we're going to learn how to fly planes, we're going to learn how to make guns and all the things that people who goes to school make.
So you thought you were going to have an education. You followed thousands of other South Sudanese children. You went in the border between Sudan and Ethiopia then, and so what happened to you when you were at this school that you thought you were going to get an education? What happened there?
There's a lot of things happening. First, when we took off, we put on a boat, and the boat capsized, and only like 250 young people were put in a small boat. And then in the end, only 50 people survived, and then my dad didn't allow me to stay, so they collect other hundreds of young people, and we have to walk to Ethiopia. Then arriving there, we actually went to school for a while, but what was really disturbing is seeing 6, 7 years old burying their own dad. And we were not strong, people were starving, and diseases were attacking us, and then we got trained. So.
Mm. And you said the commander at the school told you that basically from now on, the gun was going to be your mother and father.
Yes, that's yes, that's what everybody's told. The gun is your father and your mother. Even your dad, if they come along, you can put a bullet on their head. So we're taught about how the importance of the cause that we're in.
And you felt, in a way, you say in your book, War Child, your biography, that you felt like you had a family again.
It's like a big family because, but the thing is, I did not know what the war was all about. Mm. I had my reasons why I wanted to be trained. And my desire was to kill as many Muslims and Arabs as possible because that's what I thought, that's what the war is, even though when they sing song. I did not know what the war was all about.
So, I mean, for example, in your book, you talk about one raid on a village where there was an old woman and you just raised your stick and you said, I started hitting the old woman again and again until my arm ached.
That was... This was in a place in Ethiopia. Actually, we just got finished training. Mm. And what happened was we used to go to these rivers and steal their goats, their chickens, and then would bury them on the sun. And because we're trained, and then what happened is these people don't know where do their animals disappear, and they're not catching anyone. And so we would raid the places where they make their maize, we steal their mangoes, their bananas. So their way to fight back is they put spears on the riverbanks. And so what happened is when the kids come and dive in the river just to swim and have fun, they would stick down there. And so what we used to think it was crocodile. But when somebody, one of the kids who survived, came out, an adult found the actual spears down there, it created anger. And that's when we invaded their village and burned it down.
And you told that old woman to lie down, otherwise you would cut off her head. And then you started hitting her. I mean, when you look back at that period, how does that make you feel, the fact that you actually not only fought but killed?
But what happened is I wasn't alone. There were many of us. So there was, when you're in a group, anything can happen and you can scream. But things like this, you know, it's hard sometimes you try to remember and digest it. So sometimes it's disturbing for me.
But do you feel that in a way you become dehumanized by these actions? Again, you talk about how you just wanted to kill as many Arabs, northern Sudanese as you could, and there was a man wearing the jalabia, the white kaftan, and you just raised your machete and smashed into him, and you said with one of your fellow child soldiers you just were laughing.
Well, the guys were not wearing jalabias. These incidents were in the battlefield, so in situation where the soldiers were still killing us. This was in Juba, and so sometimes when you capture people like that, you want them to feel the pain, so you don't want to shoot them easily.
You call them jalabia because that's what they wear traditionally. Appreciate that. Yeah, that's a reference to the northern Sudanese.
Jalabia is a dress.
Yeah.
So jalaba is the name of the Arab.
Is how you refer to them through the dress that they wear. Yeah. But I mean, just explain to us, why do you not see them as human beings when you're on the battlefield fighting, and you just see them as being just the enemy, the oppressor, and that's it?
Because of experience. At one time I saw my mother beaten in front of me and got humiliated, and then my uncle tried to stop, and then tried to be in the butt. He was beaten as well. That time as a kid I jumped to bite one of the soldiers' foot, and then he pressed my neck, and then I blacked out. And so remembering that and seeing my mom humiliated in front of me and my uncle beaten, and our food got taken by force, and one of the soldiers saying it's God's will that these people are going to be slaves. They started a rebel movement, they'll never win. So those seeds that were planted in my head, see them as terrible people. And so I did not have a word to put in now, but now I could say I was either bitter and had a hatred for that time, if I can describe it.
So that's the kind of thing that went through your head when you were killing the enemies, you saw them, all these thoughts would come cascading back?
You use these thoughts to justify situations. You use them to make yourself brave. Like, for example, when we're scared, you remember how your village was burning, you see how your mom was screaming, and also I would remember how my auntie was raped when I was a kid. So you use those anger is what you use to hold you to stand so that you don't get afraid.
Did you feel in a way better? Did the pain subside once you felt you carried out these vengeance attacks for what had happened to your family?
Only for 5 minutes. Then after that, the ghost will follow you for a very long time. Because human life is not easy. Maybe those who get used to killing every day, but if it's your first time, it's different when you got somebody in a cold blood. Yeah.
You were then one of, the estimates today are still something like 250,000 to 300,000 child soldiers somewhere in the world, and you're now in your mid-30s. Do you still feel haunted by what happened to you when you were a child soldier?
Well, at the moment I was very bitter, so I managed to forgive myself and also forgive those who have harmed me, and opened my mind. I came to the world and realized what was killing us wasn't Muslims and Arabs. So I realized it's a bigger thing, bigger than what I thought. And I realized it's economical, and then mostly sometimes activated by political situation. And so in that process, I got educated to let go, and that's when my healing began.
You managed to escape, and you were about 11 when you managed to fall into the hands of Emma McCune, who was a young British woman married to Riek Machar from the same tribe as you, the Nuer, who was the vice president, who then has gone on the run in this recent conflict. Being with Emma McCune, she tragically died, of course, in a car accident in Nairobi soon after. How far was that part of the healing process?
Well, what actually Emma did is she rescued over 150 child soldiers. So I happened to be one of those ones. So she smuggled me into Kenya, put me in school. And I didn't know if she even knew that I was related to Riek. So hers was more about passion, helping a child. And my thoughts, even when I was getting rescued, was actually different. Even I didn't want to leave my gun. I still want to come back to war. And so I was saying, I'm going to this white woman country, learn how to be a pilot, steal a plane, and then, then come back to war. So those are the thoughts I have. But now they have changed. I've become a different soldier.
So now we come to what's going on now. You say that you're related to Riek Machar. You're not actually related, are you? You're from the same part of South Sudan as he is. So 3 years ago, South Sudan votes for independence. It gets it. And now look at it. In the midst of another conflict, 10,000 killed since December, maybe more. People don't know. Do you think everybody knows what's going on now in your country?
Well, not everybody knows, because it depends on who's putting the message out. The government has their own propaganda speaking out. The people in the oppositions have their way of putting out. But as I can put on a perspective, what actually happened now was a political situation. One party members asking the president, we have to democratize our party, we have to make it accountable, and we have to make things transparent and transform this country to be democratic. And that's how the battle began. And so the president...
As you say, President Salva Kiir won the election. And we're talking about President Salva Kiir, who of course is from the Dinka tribe, and Riek Machar, of course, broke away from the government and is now fighting his former ally, as it were. And you have very clearly blamed Salva Kiir for this. You said in your Facebook in December last year, President Salva Kiir wants to pocket our freedom. I'm not just going to keep quiet. The president is responsible for those who died.
Yes, I actually say that because what is peace? Peace is justice, equality, and freedom for all. Peace is when there's food on the table for many children, kids going to school, shelter, medical. Peace is when conflicts are managed in a mature manner, that the violence is prevented. The situation that happened, that violence would have been prevented. The political situation, it should not come and kill people. They should have sorted in the political way, because now what is happening is the people in jail are the founding fathers of SPLM.
You were talking about those who were put in jail earlier last year by Salva Kiir because he felt that they were plotting a coup against him. But the point I'm making here, Emmanuel,
I would say it's not tribal. The tribal is used to cover up. It's used to campaigns and get support. This is not a tribal war. It's a battle between one party doesn't want to democratize itself, and the president wanting to stay in power for years.
But you say that it's not tribal, but there are many of those who say it is. Tutu Ismail, for instance, the governor in the northeast part of South Sudan, in Lankeen, says we see this as a tribal fight.
If you look at it, you have the whole government, all resources, using all its resources to fight one tribe, and bringing Ugandan forces, the Congolese, and now the rebels from Sudan to come and fight this one tribe. But it's a political. Who are the people in jail now in jail? So
they're not all Nuer, admittedly, and we have.
Sad. Yeah. The reason why Nuer are fighting, it's because when the incident happened, they killed civilians. So the family members from the villages were angry at the government, why are you targeting our civilians? And that's how the rebellion happened.
But you are very fair, you are very much pointing the finger of blame at Salva Kiir. And the point is, as Ivan Simonovic says, who's the UN Assistant Secretary General for Human Rights, he has said that in January, he said, we've received reports of mass killings, sexual violence, looting, recruitment of child soldiers by both sides, both those following Riek Machar and those who were supporting President Salva Kiir.
The reason I point the president, because when you're the head, you enjoy everything. When things goes bad, you need to step and say, look, I'm responsible here.
But so was Riek Machar until May last year. He was vice president.
He was running for his life. If you document and follow every step, and all of those people, none of them picked arms until they were forced to. And so what happened is, what I'm here for is, civilians should have not been targeted in Juba. 2 of my brothers got killed. Some of my family members, I don't know where they are. They're civilians. They have nothing to do with the government. So, and what happens now could have been solved easily on the table.
But look, you're an influential South Sudanese. You have a high international profile. And when you put the message I said you did on Facebook in December, it gets a negative response. For example, from this South Sudanese chap, Triplex Sultan, said, people like you, Emmanuel, are the ones messing up our beloved country because they send out mixed messages, preach peace on the one hand and carry the gun in the other. Please stay out of politics. Another one, Tony Ton, said, Jal, you're very disappointing. You should be a man of all people and not taking sides. Why are you taking sides?
My side is justice, equality, and freedom for all. You see, that's the side I take. And when I take that side, and if I try to say the truth, people who feel where they're eating or getting their bread is threatened, they'll always fight back. And that's what I always fight back. I only fight for justice and equality.
But are you on the same side as Riek Machar, for instance?
His fight is different. I cannot just say, hey, I'm on your side because he's a politician. What about if he goes to power and start using the same way as Kiir is doing?
But you're against Salva Kiir.
I'm against what he's doing, not him. I was beaten by police. Now...
You're talking about in 2012
yes.
when you went to Juba
yes.
and you were beaten up by police there simply because they knew that you are a Nuer.
And why did they have to target my family? What does my family have to do with this? So if you look at it now, 5 million people are in food shortage. 1 million people displaced. Thousands of people have died. Those people need humanitarian assistance. We have refugees in the camps that don't get proper assistance. And that's where the focus is.
You're absolutely right. I mean, Hilda Johnson, who was the head of the United Nations mission in South Africa, has been sounding the alarm bells in the last few days saying, look, the clock is ticking very fast and we have perhaps 1 million people who are at risk of famine. Do you think the international community should be doing more? If you just take that humanitarian assistance, for instance, an appeal has been put out for $1.3 billion humanitarian help for South Sudan. Only 25% of that has actually been achieved.
I think the humanitarian can do, the international community can do a lot by pressuring both sides and making them accountable. We don't need to allow leaders get away with murder. So the cases in South Sudan should be referred to ICC so that when peace actually comes...
The International Criminal Court.
Yes, so they should be held accountable. And those people who die, any person that is dying now, don't have to die. And actually, myself, I feel ashamed by the actually party SPLM because they're the one who have brought us the death. It's one party bringing the entire country suffering.
But what about African solutions for African problems? As you mentioned, we have Ugandan forces who are in South Sudan supporting Salva Kiir at the moment. The idea being, and IGAD, of course, the East African Community Group, is brokering the peace talks, although they've now been suspended for about a month. Shouldn't it be better rather than go off to the ICC to try to get the Africans to solve this themselves?
Well, Ugandan saw 2 brothers fighting and pick one brother to kill one brother. That's not the way forward. You should have come in the middle and say, hey, why are you killing each other? That's not African solution. That's economical solution. Just everybody's after their interests. The only thing that I see which is a better window is the United Nations that took peacekeeping force. This peacekeeping